Hello? Oh, hi. Hi. How's everyone doing? All right, awesome. So, who likes Cowboy Bebop? Okay, just want to make sure everyone's in the right panel. Want to make sure everyone's in the right room. Is this anyone's first time at Yamacon? Awesome. Welcome. I might have asked you guys that before, but new faces, Saturday. So we have a great panel for you, and we are going to bring them on stage. So I want everyone to give them a big round of applause. We have Bo Billingsley, Wendy Lee, Steve Bloom, and Paul St. Peter. Give them a round of applause.
Shucks, howdy, how y'all doing? I love this crew.
Hello? Is this on?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's so great to be here.
I love the kind of woman that can kick my, you know what.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Great to be here. So,
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Bebop.
welcome to the Bebop. Nice to have you all riding along with us.
Absolutely. Year after year, it's the greatest thing to see all you guys.
Yeah, I can't believe we're talking about this. What is it, 21 years later?
Yes. Oh my God.
And we're all still alive?
We're all still alive. Just barely. Just barely.
Yeah.
Well, if you call this living, yeah, we're still alive.
And we never get to see each other back. We all live in Los Angeles. So we never get to see each other there. So we have to travel all the way across the country just to hang out.
to hang out, right?
Yeah, unless we're having like a union meeting or something like that where we meet to talk about contracts. Otherwise, because we all work solo, people ask me, what's it like working with Steve Bloom? I go, I don't know. I don't work with him yet.
I don't know if we've ever worked in the same room together. Yeah. Wow. Anyway, so welcome, guys, to the Cowboy Bebop panel. We have a microphone up here, so you guys can ask your questions. Does everybody know who we are? Yeah? Is there anybody who has no idea who we are? It's cool. Oh, great. There are hands up. All right, so why don't we introduce ourselves?
No, I think the people that don't know who we are should leave. No, you can stay. It's all right.
Let's start with a lady. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. I'm Wendy Lee, and I play Faye Valentine. Thank you.
Steve Bloom, and I play Spike.
Yay! Boo, boo. Oh, no, sorry. I'm Bo Billingsley, and I play Jet Black.
Yes, he does.
And I'm Paul St. Peter, and I played Punch from The Big Shot.
Yay! Yay! Yay!
I'm happy you are here. Yes.
Happy.
Okay, so if you guys would like to, just line up in front of the microphone here and give us your burning questions. All right, thank you for being the first brave soul up.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know, what is your guys' favorite episode of Cowboy Bebop?
Just get that checked off the list right away.
All right, yeah, okay.
That is a question we get in every single panel. It's pretty outstanding. I like the way that you set it up and kind of lead up to Twilight. Is that your favorite?
Yeah, well, I love a bunch of episodes, and I hate the favorite question. Actually, my favorite thing is the movie, just because it felt so complete on its own. And I love the music from that particularly. But I think other than that, my three favorite episodes, I can't choose one, would be Mushroom Samba, just because it's so weird. Hero Le Fou, just because it was creepy and one of the scariest villains of all time, played by Kevin Seymour, one of the innovators of anime. Yeah, we love Kevin. And then Toys in the Attic, because we got to perform that live as a cast a few times, and really fun for charity. We've done that for charity.
We've done a few live readings, and it's been really fun to recreate it years later. Of course, I love all the backstory for Fei Fei, Speak Like a Child, and anytime that we get to find out more about her and peel back those layers. I was just looking into some of, they had a list of the top 10 Bebop episodes, and I posted them, I think, on Twitter, just kind of asking people what they thought their favorites were out of those. And for me, it's also Mushroom Samba and being locked in the bathroom high as a kite, just experiencing everything that Faye does for eyes. But recently, I just kind of reconnected that she was from a well-to-do family, and I don't really think of her that way initially. She doesn't play it up front, but it is another layer that we find out in all the episodes.
And we got her really high and locked her in the bathroom just so we could have.
Right. Well, she's a method actor, so.
You've told them.
Favorite one?
Yeah, well, I like toys in the attic, but I have to go with Mushroom Samba. Whenever Jet is talking to his bonsai trees, and I never thought I would actually do an anime where I was stoned, so that was a great joy. But so one of the lines that has always stuck with me was when Jet was there talking to his bonsai trees, and then he had this introspective moment where he says, "Who am I anyway?" I really enjoyed Mushroom Summer, although it was stereotypical in a certain way with the drug dealers, but we're not going to go there.
It was kind of a fun homage, at least.
Yeah, I think so. And but I love Toys in the Attic because as Steve and Wendy said, we've done I think 3 live readings. We did it in D.C. and in Birmingham, and we did it in L.A. and Hollywood.
You have a much better memory than I do.
I'm just faking it. I'm throwing stuff out there. I know you don't know
mushrooms to remember that.
Mushrooms will do that to you.
Any shit-talky mushrooms, anyone? Okay.
Kid friendly.
I tell that story too, the shiitake one, and every time I tell that story to anyone at a panel, they always start listening very carefully, and I said, "Didn't you get it?" And they look at me, I said, "Shiitake." And they all turn and go, so I said, next time you watch the episode, be ready for that, because they got away with it. They actually did
that was the thing. I gave it a shot, because Mary said, well, give it a shot, and it probably won't make it. And it did,
It's the proper pronunciation of the mushroom.
I think it's the proper pronunciation of the mushroom.
Sorry, we went off on a rant there.
Okay, or you guys are here.
We're on a panel.
Right.
We never get together.
So we got to talk.
We tell stories about what happened in the episodes that we didn't know about each other. Like Wendy didn't know I played Punch for like 5 years after, probably 5 years after we wrapped the show. I was going into a session to work with Mary as the director, and Wendy was coming out. And when we talk about not working together, that's when we see each other coming out of the studio, going in to work. Yeah, and so Mary looks at me and says, "Shucks, howdy." And I said, "No bounty for no computer, no way." And Wendy looks at me and her eyes are this big, and she said, "That was you?" But that's it, people ask us about the vocal ranges and all the characters. You look at our pictures we have at our tables, and they're going, "That wasn't you, that couldn't have been you, you can't be blah, blah, blah." No, that's us, that's the range we bring. So it's to the point where people don't even know, because I'll hear Steve do a voice from a show, and I'll go like, "That's not even Steve."
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And Wendy sitting next to me out in the exhibit room in there, she was doing some characters and some voices and saying these things, and I just look over and I turned to Sheena, who's my handler, and I said, "I love to hear her work." But I can't remember the name of my favorite episode, but it was the one where I said, "No bounty for no computer, no way." That's my call line.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How y'all doing?
Great.
Really well.
You?
I'm doing fine, thank you. My question is, Cowboy Bebop is very different from most anime, because many anime is often most of the protagonists are either teenagers or barely adults, and they're mostly just staple characters and not that well developed. And what skills I have are also arguably undeveloped, and often they just get lucky because the plot demands it. But with Cowboy Bebop, excuse me, most of the protagonists are much older, more complex, and many of their skill sets and knowledge bases are much more developed. How much do you think that played into the success of Cowboy Bebop?
It's a very complex question. I bet, I've never heard that question before. I bet it had quite a bit to do with it, because it made it relatable, I think. Because I think most people that do develop a certain skill set or different complexities, it takes time. Life takes time. We all make a lot of mistakes before we get to that sweet spot, if we even ever find it. So I think that's one of the reasons that could have been that made that show so relatable. Something I hadn't even thought about. That's pretty intuitive, dude.
I think it gives it a reality that a lot of anime doesn't have. I mean, there's a realness to it, to a lot of, obviously. And that is an interesting question. But I think that that is one of the reasons it's grounded. And there is a reality to it because the protagonists are kind of real.
It's one of the things I like to say about the show is that it is a very, very adult anime. It's one of the ones that I would recommend if you're talking to a friend who doesn't know anime and say, well, if we're going to start somebody off, start them with that. First of all, our voice work was superior. Thank you. Thank you. But also, really, look at the plot lines. Look at the complexities, the characters being much more developed, more mature, that sort of thing. One of the reasons I like to describe the show to people and recommend it to them, as I say, these are bounty hunters. This is a show that doesn't really have any necessarily truly good guys in them, okay? So when you see that, Faye in one particular episode basically says to Spike, sorry, I stole one from you. They're bounty hunters, okay? They're kind of like friends, but they're bounty hunters. So in a sense, there aren't any purely good people in this one, and that's what makes it gritty, You feel the sweat and, that kind of stuff. It's a classic show in that regard.
Except for maybe Edward.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, kind of.
Edward, in a simple way, she's very sweet, yeah.
Yeah. But getting back to Faye, in a word, she's a thief. She stole our woolons and then call for help.
I can't help it if I'm good at it.
But at the same she stole your heart in the process, right? Yeah.
And when she's bad, she's better. That's what I like.
Well, I'm really good at that, too.
Pretty hot for a 70-something. Yeah.
69 and a half.
I like where this is going. Okay. Next up. Oh, look at the Fei over there. Hi, Fei. Hi, Spike. Yeah. Nice.
Hello there.
Hi.
Hi. Excuse me. I was curious if you had any roles or shows or anything like that that you feel are underappreciated. Like, I know one of the most common questions in these are, like, what are your favorite roles you've done and things like that. But maybe a variation on that. Have you ever, put your heart and soul into something and it just doesn't work?
Not so much that it doesn't work, but it just doesn't get marketed properly. We did Megas XLR together. And that was one of my favorite shows I've ever done in my career, and they just didn't know what to do with that show. They ended up using it as a tax write-off.
Right.
Yeah, did you know that?
A built-in loss. Huh?
Yeah, Cartoon Network used that as a tax write-off because they didn't know how to market it. They didn't know really what the market was for that. And it was just this beautiful love letter to anime and giant robots and everything that we love. And they didn't quite know what to do with that show, but we definitely put our hearts and souls into that. It was amazing.
Remember they said that there were too many bot shows at the time.
Oh, is that what
Yeah, well, it was part of the debate, but then later more bot shows showed up after they didn't renew us. So, unfortunately, yeah.
But for the record, chicks still dig giant robots. Nice.
I did a show called Legend of Black Heaven, and I voiced OG. Oh, somebody saw it.
That's what I've called you all these years.
Both of them are here, the two people that
Yeah,
saw
both
it.
people who saw it are here.
Thank you
we'll
both
talk
for getting
later. Right? But yeah, I mean, I was saving the universe with my music, and it was fabulous, and that was it. It just went down, and the two of you saw it, and that was it.
Back 25 years ago, Wendy directed me in a series called The Adventures of Zoe and Charlie. Yes, and it was the most sweet, darling anime, the cutest little characters, the wonderful plots. I got to be the narrator called The Sage, and it was a joy to work on. And we finished it up. But we started doing that when Fox said, we don't have enough child programming, we got to hurry this up. So we came in on weekends and nights to get the first 5 episodes done, and then we waited and waited, and 25 years later, Wendy said she saw it someplace. I have never seen it. It sat on a shelf. To my knowledge, it's never been released. If it came out today, you guys would fall in love with it.
The licensing sometimes runs out. That's what would happen with a lot of the Saban properties. They would sometimes just ride them out and lose licensing, and then they couldn't distribute. But we had another show like that, Super Pig. Remember Super Pig, which was fantastic, starring Julie Madalena, and who was just amazing. And if you know her work, she's almost 5 feet tall and amazing, and went through 2 pregnancies during recording, and literally went into labor while I was directing her. And it was sort of went like this. Oh, just a moment. Okay. I think I have 4 minutes between contractions. And we just carried on and kept recording. And then she came back no more than 3 weeks later with a swaddled baby attached as a little papoose in the front, and sat down, got her mic'd, and we'd hear, okay, I think we're ready to record. And she would just scream and yell and do powerful call-outs, and the baby would sleep through it. It was great. And then I realized this is an amazing profession for women. They can work right through the last trimester and come back right after giving birth. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah. No maternity leave necessary.
Not right. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
You already answered my shocking question. This show kind of starts towards the ends of these character stories, and there's like a lot of details they don't ever like fully explain, and that really gives it a lot of depth. But I was wondering, as a voice actor, did you get a lot of details about these characters that weren't really in the show? Like maybe how Spike lost one of his eyes.
We didn't get details about anything. We walked into the room cold. I don't know about you guys, but I knew nothing about the show before I walked into that room. And I think they did that intentionally, just because they wanted it to feel spontaneous and fresh. That happens a lot in the shows we work on. Sometimes they don't even have materials from Japan in advance, but I had no idea what I was going to say until I walked into that room that day. I didn't even know how it ended until the last recording session. And Mary intentionally didn't tell me. And when I found out, I went, yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, they intentionally do that.
Normally, we don't get any information on shows. Bebop was prior to computers.
Yeah.
We didn't even have computers, so we couldn't research the material in advance. Now I know when I'm directing on a lot of shows, people come in prepared knowing the universe the show comes from, or the game, or their character specifically. And there's no way for us to do that research back in those days. We just had no access. But we really need to know, as far as actors go. You just are told what you need to know for that line, for that scene. And then sometimes, if time allows, we'll get an overview from the director. I try to do a real quick overview of what's going on in a show before we begin recording. But it's best to be an open palette and to roll with the moment and let it be really of the moment and spontaneous. If you rehearse dialogue as an actor, you start memorizing it, you tend to memorize it in a pattern that's very difficult to break once you go to the studio and try to match an image and syncopate it and change the way that you've been planning your dialogue. So it's much better just to be warmed up, show up, what are we doing today, and go in and scream like a bug or explode or whatever, yeah.
Right. Yeah, regarding the tail end of what Wendy said, on camera, we have to memorize our lines. And it's one of the techniques I use is I try to say my lines out loud in every different way possible so I don't get into the pattern. So that you can, because you don't necessarily, a lot of times what happens is that your response is based upon what is said to you, because acting is reacting, right? And so that you need to be ready to react according to how your other player delivers his or her lines. So you do have to have that flexibility. And it's nice in the voiceover world that we have enough information because the directors give us a little give us the parameters of what's going on at that particular moment when we're recording. Like Wendy will give us an idea of what's going on, and then you do what you do. But yeah, it's a wonderful world, isn't it? The world of voiceover. Yeah.
Yeah, much of what happens with us is when we go in, we may have been given a little bit of information on the breakdown, which they give you at the beginning. This is what you're auditioning for. You get booked. You go in, and then they have to give you a very quick sketch of what the world is like, all right? So, I mean, I walk in and they say, okay, this is a world where dragons fly around and puppies guide them, okay? And cockroaches do your taxes. And they said, oh, okay, and so here's your character.
That's true to life, though. That's
well, yeah. Well, my life, anyway, I don't know what you guys, but I mean, they'll give you that, and then they say, okay, and go. That's about it. And honestly, because there's not much time. We don't get to do like, I've worked a movie of the week with someone like at Disney. You get a table read. Everybody gets to work the script, and then the writer sits there and goes, oh, good idea, I'm going to rewrite it that way. We don't get that. That's why I say, when I have a scene with Bo, I don't find out till after the show's released that Bo and I did a scene together. Right. So there's just no time, and that's kind of the way it works. As actors, in that sense, part of our job is to fill in the blanks.
like Toonami. Right?
Yeah, we just, are there Toonami fans here? Awesome. Only Toonami. Just recently we started doing this new immersion event called The Forge. And Bo plays the bad guy in this thing. And I didn't know until after, I think the first episode aired. I saw the lines. I did your lines at home because I didn't know if I was going to be playing the alien or not. And I sent it in so they have context or something to storyboard to. I always try to give them, and I record from home. And then this thing comes out and it's Bo, and I went, what? Yeah! But I had no idea. And so we got to talk about that a little bit at this convention. It's the first time we've seen each other, I think, since it came out. But yeah, episode 5 airs tonight on Toonami. So stay up late, only Toonami on Adult Swim.
See what happens.
Thank you. Very good question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No. Who's next? I'm sorry.
But my question was, were there any books or classes you would recommend for voice acting?
BloomVoxStudios.com.
I was going to do that for you, but you did it yourself, so okay.
There's a ton of information out there. Yuri Lowenthal and Tara Platt have a wonderful book called Voiceover Voice Actor. D. Bradley Baker has a website called IWantToBeAVoiceActor.com. And I'm teaching voiceover online now, too. It's called BloomVoxStudios.com. I have cards at my desk. I don't want to take up too much time here talking about that, but for all levels, you can do it from anywhere in the world. It's online, and the classes are live. And our next guest is going to be Tom Kane. He's coming in live for that, so on the 17th of December. You guys are the first to hear it, by the way. Yeah, but come by my table. I have cards.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
How's it going, guys? I've got a real simple, silly question for you. If Ein wasn't a dog, what kind of animal would you rather have him been? What kind of animal would you have rather him been instead of a corgi?
Well, I'm thinking if he was a cat, because actually to Jet, Spike and Faye are kind of like cats. You know, they say herding cats. You know what I'm saying? So I think Ein would be a great cat. He'd fit right in with these two right here.
Yeah, just another one. That's what I was thinking, too.
I think he'd be a. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I think he'd be a smack talking parrot.
Oh,
Yeah.
Smack talking bear.
I was thinking for all the trouble he was, he should have been a ferret.
All right, thank you, guys.
Something like an avatar and combine the two.
3 of the 4 of you guys use close to your natural voice. Does that make relate to the character voice some? When you 3 or 4 of y'all use your natural speaking voices, did that help you connect to the character more when instead of doing a voice?
So who's the fourth one? Oh, I don't talk like this all the time at home. Shucks, howdy, mom, how you doing? You know.
For me, it was actually a lot harder back then. I played a lot of big, broad characters and a lot of creatures, and to create a character in my own natural speaking voice was really intimidating because I had to actually act, and I had to concentrate on the acting more than the voice, and that was a very difficult thing for me to comprehend. It terrified me. In fact, I actually learned how to become vulnerable as a person in the context of doing that. It kind of changed me on a cellular level. But it was abject fear to do a character in my own voice at first. But it made me a lot better actor, and it made me a better person, I think, too.
Yeah, you know, it's something that kind of throws an actor because you're used to hanging a performance on another person, another persona, and it liberates you in doing that. It really opens up your ability to explore and create, and there's no fault because it's not you, it's the character. So when we are asked, and I went through this a lot as a younger actor when I was on camera quite a bit, when my direction was just be yourself. Just keep it natural, just be yourself. You know, you are the character. It's not that you're playing the character. And I would have to really go through shedding the idea of ego and being self-aware. And I think that's what we go through when we're placing a voice that's in our natural range. And I remember going through a little adjustment because it was one of the first times I really sat back in the depth of my voice for an ongoing character for episodic. So yeah, it was a little bit of an adjustment. I'd been through it before, but I kept trying to kind of make her a little younger. And Mary and I Mary Elizabeth, our director, we both agreed, let's ground her and let her have some depth and gravity, and then leave some room for reactions and some comedy that maybe was a little higher pitched and so forth.
One of the first classes I taught at BloomBugStudios.com was about making friends with your voice, because prior to that, I actually hated the sound of my own voice. And I think that's something a lot of new voice actors struggle with, is that we just don't like the sound of it when we hear it recorded and played back. And if you can make friends with that natural gift that you have, that's the thing that actually sets you apart, makes you unique, and ultimately becomes your moneymaker if you stay in the business long enough. It becomes your signature. So I go into that in great detail with my students and encourage them to do that early on rather than wait like I did and suffer through the process.
Yeah, I'm sorry, one other comment on that is just that it's very, very clear when someone is new and green coming into voiceover, they're still struggling with the sound of their voice. They're taking off the headphones, they're ew, and I would just say, as you're having that experience, if any of you do, to try to forgive yourself. Just let go and don't focus on telling everybody how you're feeling. Internalize that so you still appear to have confidence and work through the process.
And have a sense of humor about it, too.
Yeah.
It's all about play. What we do is play. When you were talking a little bit earlier about us stepping into these characters, we get to be little kids in adult suits. That's the whole point, is to have fun doing this. And if you forget to have fun and you get so caught up in your head, you're kind of missing the point. And when you're having fun, it translates out to the audience, too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. That majority of my career was on camera, so that my voice was my voice, and the mindset for the on-camera actor is not all about right in here. So doing voice work, whenever I would have an opportunity to do a voice that was not mine, it was just, yay, I can do a kid, you know what I mean? And so I guess my experience is slightly different. So in a certain way, it's just flashing back to being a child when you're playing different roles. When you're playing, if you're playing doctor, which I did a lot, or cops and robbers or whatever it was, if you're going to be a cop, you're going to be stern. And so as an on-camera actor, the mind does not go to the voice. The mind goes to the essence of the character, and sometimes there are vocal changes, but that's organic to who the character is and how he fits into the overall project. So for me, if I have an opportunity, I'm kind of typecast in the voice world, but if I have an opportunity to do, like with Digimon, I actually did some children's Walla, And but I rarely get a chance to do that because that's not the way I'm seen. Like Steve does like 1,000 voices, so he's everybody in the business is aware of his of his range, and a lot of people aren't aware of my range. So if I get a chance to do something that's far from my voice, I'm jumping with glee to say, yeah, I can do that.
I just want to comment on that. That's a profound thing that you have been able to play multiple roles on camera, but you're stereotyped as a voice. That is kind of profound. And I know that we've stretched you in all kinds of directions. You have a million voices. You actually do. You just don't really get permission to deliver. Yes.
You need a better agent, kid.
I know I do.
Well, it's bizarre for me because I had a stage background, having worked as an opera singer, doing all these other things. By the time I got used to my own voice in my late 20s, I was then asked to be all these different people, which is why when I do my panels, I say, my name is Paul St. Peter, and this is my voice, because you never get to hear it. I am, like he said, 3 of the 4 of you get to use your own voices. So hardly anybody ever knows what I really sound like. I'm rarely ever cast to sound like me. They bring me in because I'm a monster, or I do all my accents and dialects, my specialties. So when they meet me, they go, "Oh, is that's what you sound like?" I go, yeah, "This is really Paul St. Peter." Yes,
That's because your standard news announcer is usually underlapped with dialogue over it. You
Yes.
do a lot of
Yeah.
news announcing.
Oh, Bebop, that was it. There's my 2 roles were Punch, and then I did a role as in the series, a little small part as a newscaster. And then when we did the movie, Wendy tells me, "Okay, ironically, you only have a little bit as Punch, but you've got this long scene as the newscaster." I went. So, and I used to train broadcasters too, so I was perfect for all of this stuff. And the first thing that happens is they want me to come in and start speaking like I spoke Swahili in Resident Evil 5.
Oh, okay.
Actually, for him, I would actually say,
Hakuna Matata.
well, actually, what you did there sounded kind of like, but I was speaking Swahili, which is Bantu, a Bantu dialect. And I say, Sninesa kakoko, which means friend of my grandfather.
I'm not that old.
And now you had to make it creepy.
Yeah, we were really good friends.
Let's take some more questions.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, we're going to go nuts up here.
I just wanted to say I really appreciate all the effort and work you guys put into these characters, because even though they've been around for as long as they have, they're some of my favorites in the anime fandom, and y'all's performance during them was very much a part of that. But with that said, at the start of the panel, y'all said that y'all kind of didn't expect to still be here 20 years later talking about this. So I just kind of wondered, like, what's your favorite experience or a fun moment that you kind of realized that you were kind of ingrained in those characters and that it kind of blew up into this cult following?
Well, Steve and I had a thing. Yeah, we still have a thing. We have to talk to Mary about that. But, as Wendy said, we used to use paper. You guys know what paper is? You've read about paper? Okay. So the scripts would be, it'd be in paper. And I remember there was a time when Steve left a note in the script for me by one of my loops. It said, "Hey, Bo, jet sucks." So I found one of his loops deeper in the script that he would record later, and I said, "Hey, Steve, Spike sucks, and the Bebop's my ship." Well, take that.
In your face, Spiegel.
But I don't think any of us realized it was as profound a project as it was. It was a fun gig, and like when I went in, you're talking about voices. When I went, it was Cowboy Bebop, so I'm thinking cowboys. And so Mary and I were talking about the voice he would have. So I was saying, well, maybe he's a cowboy. Maybe he talks like that, And maybe he chews a little tobacco, thing like that. And she said, probably not. Excuse me. So anyway, and I realized that the bebop was because I'm from that generation, bebop, baloo, you're my baby. So I was thinking, oh, these are cowboys that sing? Or, I mean, what's going on? And then I realized what it was, and Mary told me, she said, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we just take your regular voice and tweak it a little bit? And that's how we ended up, with my voice. But, excuse me, but we didn't, it took a while for me to realize, hey, this is really something special. It was a gig, a fun gig, but it was a gig. And we got paid, minimal money, because that was the deal. But it took a while.
No residuals.
Yeah. Even with all the re-releases, yeah. But this is the payoff for it. We get to come to the conventions, and I think that the thing that really solidified the importance of this show for me was coming to a convention years and years ago, and people would come up in a room very much like this, and they say that bebop got them through a hard time. It got them through the death of a loved one, or got them through anxiety, or helped an autistic child to feel like they were part of a community. Those are the things that made me realize that we were doing something of value, and the power of this show, the quality of this show, and the lasting effect it's had, and the influence that it's had on the entire industry. It's pretty amazing what came as a result of this show. And the best after effect of all of it for me is that I finally got the girl. I'm engaged to the lady who played Julia and directed us, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn. So, yeah. There was a happy ending.
Honestly, I felt like the momentum and the popularity of the show was very gradual.
Yeah, it was.
There was no one moment when I went, wow, this is bigger than I thought. It just gradually warmed up more and more. Maybe when Cartoon Network picked it up?
So Toonami had a big effect, I think, because it brought it to a much larger audience. I mean, Toonami is really responsible for a lot of what we love, I think, getting out into the public. Back then, when we first started, you'd pay $85 for one episode on a VHS if you could find it. And when Toonami actually made this accessible to the general public, it exploded. I mean, people realized this is an art form that we've never seen before. We were used to Speed Racer and, a few little things like that, but there was nothing like that out there. And this show kind of broke new ground. And it was also kind of a gateway for a lot of people that wouldn't watch anime because it had so many wonderful American influences, worldwide influences, actually, global influences.
Yeah, for me, to pick out a moment when I felt like the project was special, I would say one of my cues with my insane punch stuff. And when we finish a cue, they stop and they say, okay, playback, or that was long, it was short, let's try, or do one for safety. And so I finished this cue and the episode kept running. They didn't stop it. I looked in the booth and Mary and the engineer were both laughing so hard. So I thought, well, that's great. But I was in the same boat where I didn't know where this would go. And it did take time. I'm doing a series right now called Miraculous Ladybug, or actually I finished it, right? And I was at a con, and I was talking about other voices, and I said, and on Ladybug, and half the room went, I said, well, what? You're in Ladybug? And so I went back to the director, Ezra Weiss, and I said, what's up with that? He goes, Paul, don't you know? Miraculous is huge all over the world. Exploded quickly. Bebop was one of those things, it got traction and got traction and got traction to where now, if you wear something that says Bebop on it, there are a majority of people that you meet in situations know the show. They know us. They don't recognize my voice. Thank you to the previous guy, but.
I'm curious for how many of you was Bebop your first anime experience? Because I've spoken to so many of you today. Interesting. Was it maybe your top first three shows you saw? Yeah, it's interesting. And I assume that's because you were given a recommendation by someone, right? Yeah, so it just warmed up, word of mouth, and it seems like it's almost kind of gotten better over the years. There's a really warm nostalgia for it.
Makes us like a cult.
I like it.
Thank you for that.
Thank you guys for everything.
Hey guys, yeah, I totally drank the Kool-Aid. I got my only tattoo is the swordfish. So yeah, yeah. Bebop was my first anime before Toonami. You know, I had one of my best friends brought me the VHS Honky Tonk Women. You know, and I fell in love with Faye. Got a multi-part question to be really quick. I heard there was a rumor that Netflix is going to do a live action of Cowboy Bebop. How do you guys feel about that? I guess the relativity question is mostly answered in part. But you know, how did your characters affect you after you started getting that traction? Like, did you start smoking Lucky Strikes, or did you, you know, start clipping bonsai trees, or wearing cowboy hats, or wearing your underwear higher? You know what I mean? Like,
Or just gambling like crazy.
yeah, exactly.
I was thinking about having my arm amputated and have this whole
That's
thing.
your
put up,
cyborg
you know,
arm, bro.
I was flipping bonsais and wearing impossible garments. Yeah, yeah. Smoking, not so much.
Sometimes I couldn't tell Faye from Spike because of what he was doing. You know, what he was
I
wearing
know.
her clothes.
I
don't
can
know.
rock that look, baby.
Hard time.
Okay, I can speak to the Netflix thing a little bit. That is true. They are doing it. It has Watanabe's son, the creator of the show, attached to it. They're shooting it in New Zealand in part, and there are some amazing writers and producers on the show, and I know them personally, and it's going to be amazing, I think. I even stalked John Cho, the guy who's going to be playing Spike Spiegel. I stalked him on Twitter. And I actually checked in with him yesterday because a lot of people were asking about him. If you don't know, John had an accident on the set a few weeks ago in New Zealand. I was actually in New Zealand, and I was going to meet him for the first time and tour the set, and he had an accident. He hurt his leg, and I missed him by 3 days. But he's home, and as of yesterday, he said he's in recovery. He's in physical therapy, and he's doing really well. And so the plan right now is that they're going to pick up production again in about 7 to 9 months. Netflix, to their credit, is actually waiting for him to heal rather than recasting. I think that's amazing. I think that says a lot about Netflix and the show itself and their love for it. And I think that they're confident in their choice with John. And I contacted him originally just to tell him congratulations on it, and I wished him well. And I'm really looking forward to see what they do with the show. I did not see the set. No, they closed it down. They actually closed they shut the set down, and they're going to wait until he gets back. Yeah. So hopefully we'll see the beginnings of the production and maybe little teasers, something. I'm going as a fan. We have nothing to do with it. I've been begging for us to get on the show, but so far no bites. But I don't know. Maybe if we all take a trip to New Zealand and storm the set, I'll do anything. Yeah,
We'll be picketing with signs.
I told him just jokingly not jokingly. I told him that I'd love to be one of the old men. You know, the 3 old guys with the planes.
You didn't fly that mission, you idiot.
Now I'm that age. I could actually get away with it. It'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, for my part, to your question, how did it affect me? I was black for 4 days. Woo! Yeah. But the moment I put the hat on, I started looking like a cowboy again, you know. Generally speaking, no, for me, I already spoke quite a bit of Spanish, so it didn't change me in any way like that. But just affected by the role in the sense of the fun it is, and I still describe it as the weirdest role I've ever played. And thanks to Mary, thanks to Kevin, we developed that bizarre one. And like you mentioned, how the producers, when they came up with the idea, when we do in the extras on the DVD, Steve talks about that, where that idea came from and what it meant to the show. What an honor to be part of that. But it was just so weird, you know, so weird for me.
Are you guys excited for the Netflix show? Yeah, I think it could be wonderful. So we really want to support it initially and just, really put out good energy and hope that it just brings it to an even wider audience. And at some point, don't be surprised if you find us in a cantina.
Continuing the life of Cowboy Bebop has got to be good, right? It's got to be good.
One quick little story about how it changed me personally. Years after we had released the show, I was doing a panel with Mary, and I was sitting with a bunch of people on the panel. I don't remember if you were at that panel or not. I have no idea what city it was, but we're sitting there, and I'm sitting next to a bunch of people who had been classically trained, and we were talking about actors, and they said, "What's it like to be an actor on Cowboy Bebop?" And I was looking around, waiting for somebody to say something. I said, "Well, I'm not really an actor. I never had training." And Mary looked over at me and she goes, whoa, wait, stop. I got to interrupt you right there. And she goes, what do you think you've been doing the last 10 years, you idiot? And I said, oh, I'm an actor now. I didn't realize that. And light bulbs went off in my head. I thought that voice acting was something other than acting. And so I realized in that moment that I had become an actor. I actually could call myself that. And that kind of changed me. And I think it made me a little more confident in what I was doing for a living. So I thought that it was a fluke and they were going to figure out that I didn't know what I was doing the whole time.
You're going to be exposed.
That imposter syndrome was going for years, yeah.
But Steve was an entertainer. He was a touring musician for many years, and he has a lot of experience with audiences. In spite of being a person who happened into voices, I don't recommend that. Very few people ever bypass the actor's way and the actor's journey and training and everything that goes with performing on stage for large audiences. Very few people are able to bypass all of that and just jump into voiceover.
But there is an easier way to do it than I did it. I mean, if you take some classical training, take improv, go to bloomboxstudios.com. There's an easier way to do it than I did it. It took me 10 or 15 years before I really felt comfortable going into a studio. I was terrified every single time because I really thought that they were going to figure out that I didn't know what I was doing. So one of the things that I wanted to share with my students, and one of the reasons I started teaching in the first place, was just to help people to have fun in that process as you're learning. Because we're all learning. I'm still developing as an actor. All of us are.
No, this is a thing. I don't know if you guys are hearing about it, but a lot of actors are revealing imposterism. They feel like imposters. We work so hard to get the work that we finally are booked for that I have been in this position. I don't know if you have, Bo. I don't know if you have either, Paul, but I've been on set in a trailer going, oh my God, they're trusting me with this. And I worked so hard to get that part. I believed I could play that part. I convinced them and I knew it, and now I'm doing it, and then all the doubt sets in. And it's an astounding thing, but I always find the second I step on set or the second I'm on stage, it all comes together. And that a little bit of fear like that is natural and good. I think that's adrenaline. It's a form of adrenaline. Have you gone through that?
Oh, yeah, you always feel that way. Athletes, I was an athlete a good part of my life, and that adrenaline goes, and you got the butterflies in the stomach, and you run out of that tunnel, and the crowd is out there, and it's and I think Helen Mirren, one very accomplished actress, said that if you don't have the butterflies, you might as well give it up. Yeah. You know what I mean? No matter how long you've been doing it, but much like Wendy, when I started, my concept was I went to New York, and I just said, okay, here I am. And I hadn't any training at all. I had this oversized ego that I figured, it's acting. How hard can it be? You know what I'm saying? I can do this thing. And doing the stage work was pretty easy for me, just in terms of pretending and being like a child. I channeled my little child when I first started, but the rubber hit the road when I went into film acting, because you have all of these people around, like 100 people, and they're getting ready to shoot your shot, and they say, well, okay, we've got speed, they clap, and it's and action, and then you're on, and it's all about you. And there were times where I was afraid I'm going to get exposed. I know I'm going to get exposed. I'm going to get nailed here. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just pretending. And that's when I realized I better start taking some classes, because stage acting and screen acting, in terms of the essence of your character, they're basically the same. But the craft of screen acting can be frightful, because you're hitting your mark and having to do something over and over again and knowing what you did when you did it. On stage, you have your basic blocking, you do it, and you have time, you have rehearsals. But on doing TV and movies, you don't have very much rehearsal, and it's just like this, that, like that. And when you come into the booth, like, you haven't even seen what you're going to be saying. So that's one of those things where you say, well, I think I'm going to get busted here. They'll tell you something, and I do some trailers and bumpers for this show on Fox called 911, and I go to the studio, and I go in, and they hand me the copy, right? And then you're going, and then they say, okay, let's make magic. You know, just because you got to use your imagination and do your thing. I have a session actually Monday, and what they did was they sent me the script. Can you imagine that? They sent me the script ahead of time.
You must live right, man. You know?
Right, but we all have our anxieties and our insecurities and our nerves, and it's just a matter of how you deal with them. And one of the ways to deal with them is be prepared. If you do your classes and you practice and you get comfortable with this guy here, and then you can give those refined performances that people want to listen to.
I had one of those terrifying experiences just before I walked on stage. And I felt utterly, completely incompetent. I don't know how to do any of this. And my cue came, I walked on stage, and I did what I rehearsed. And it all worked. I did what I rehearsed. I didn't try to bring anything else except me to the role and trust the work. But yeah, absolutely that feeling like you go in there and you're looking like, what am I doing? Are they going to know? They're going to any moment now. There will be that grab on the shoulder. Like when I teach, I've never been to college, and I've taught at 5 universities, and I keep expecting somebody to walk up to me and say, "Mr. St. Peter, you don't have a degree, therefore you don't have a credential. Come with us, please." You know? So it feels that way. You know.
Funny, when you just said speed and action, I felt several parts of my body pucker simultaneously. It's like, oh,
that's right.
PTSD.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah.
Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
This is a question for all of you, and it may be Bebop, but I'm just curious which anime you would consider your big break, and at what age did you have your big break in voice acting?
Say favorite or the big break?
Like your big break that you would consider that is your big break in being a voice actor.
For me, it was the first one, Robotech. Yeah, that's
Same.
that's kind of where it started. Yeah, that's when Wendy and I started working together.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to audit a session. A dear friend of mine was a big traveling arena live sound engineer, and when he was in between tours, he would work doing ADR recording, automated dialogue replacement recording when we redo the audio to picture post-production. And he was a roommate of mine when he would be in town, and so he knew of the milieu of craziness that was going on in my head and all the voices I was constantly running through. And so he said, why don't you come in and audit this session and check it out? And you have all those voices in your head. Why don't you see if you can do this? And I was like, sure, I'll come check it out. And so I'm sitting and I'm watching and thinking I can do it. And there was a break in the schedule, and they said, well, your friend's an actor. Would she like to audition? And I almost jumped out of my skin, but I'm playing it really cool. I'm like, yeah, I'll try it. And I go in thinking, oh, I've got this. I'm a musical person. I can make this performance match. I've got it. At the time, we were doing analog recording, so there were no beeps. And I quickly realized I was in the deep end, and it was serious and hard work. And I thought, well, I've been humbled. I had an opportunity. That's great. I just want another chance to keep watching and learning. And several weeks later, I found out I was cast in Robotech. So it was my first audition. It really was the biggest break. But then again, I think in some ways that Akira, when we revoiced that, and certainly Bebop were just bringing it to another level of exposure. So yeah, I think it was the first.
I think I did 15 or 20 shows before I worked on Bebop, and I didn't realize that it was even possible to make a living at it. So I never even saw it as a break, and I didn't even see Bebop as a break until many years later when I think it registered to me that that was the break for me. When I was finishing Legend of Korra, we recorded the very last episode of Legend of Korra, and the creators of the show came up to me afterwards, and they said, by the way, we're huge fans of Bebop. I said, what? Why didn't you guys tell me this? And they said, yeah, that's really kind of the only reason that we brought you in the first place. What? Oh my God. And then I thought, well, in Vegas too, yeah, but to work on a show like that at Nickelodeon, it was kind of a big deal. that show was kind of a big deal. And I was thinking, wow, and this came because of Bebop. I guess that's the show that broke me. That's kind of amazing. I didn't realize it at the time. It led to so many things, like Megas. Toonami came because of Bebop. And I didn't know back then that Toonami was going to become what it ultimately became. But they brought me on that show because of Bebop. They were fans.
With me, I don't know if you could call it a big break, but I was dubbing live action foreign films into English. And Doug Stone brought me in to do those. And I think it was in the late 80s. And whenever there was an African character, I was the guy of choice. So I could say, I did it because of my father, you know. And then he asked me if I would like to do anime. And of course, my response was, what is anime? And because I didn't know. And he introduced me to Kevin Seymour. And so I think that was my break, being introduced to Kevin. And, pardon? Doug. Yeah. And then I started segueing into the voice work. But, you know, I was making my living as an on-camera actor, doing TV and movies of the week and commercials. But when I was introduced to Kevin, that opened up a whole world for me when I met Les and Mary, Claypool, and Utaka. So that I feel was my big break. In terms of an actual project, you know, I did the lead and I voiced the lead in Legend of Black Heaven. And that was frightening because I hadn't, you know, it was, you know, I was just doing this guy. And I was used to getting my scripts ahead of time. You know, that's the crutch of an on-camera actor. You know, you get to massage that thing, and now it's like, oh, okay. I just go in the booth and then I look at it and then I say it. Okay, that's how this works. Okay, but and in terms of a project, obviously for me it was Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, well, since you guys mentioned Doug Stone, I'd love to give him a little shout out. Doug brought a lot of us in to do ADR, to do voice replacement for lots of film and TV shows back in the day. And he's not mentioned very much in the industry these days. Doug kind of dedicates his time. He's an icon, yeah, to us. I learned so much from this guy. And he's dedicated a lot of his time to the rescue of kittens. He has this charity called the Kitty Bungalow.
Kitty Bungalow.
Kitty Bungalow, and I think all of us have. They're having an auction. Actually, I put a tweet up on my. If you guys are on Twitter or Instagram, I put a little post up today that I donated some items. I think all of us did for this charity. So if you guys get a chance, it would really mean a lot to Doug, and it's great to rescue kittens anyway. Who doesn't want to rescue kittens? But check that out. The link will actually take you to the auction site where you can just search our names and you'll see all the stuff that we've donated. And yeah, make a donation, get something cool, and save some kittens for Doug. We love you, Doug.
We love you, Doug.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Great question, yeah. Yes, sir.
How did you all get into acting?
By accident.
Honestly, when I was about 11 years old, I was playing street football with a guy from across the street named Steve Pittman. And Steve was talking about having done a play in school. And he says, it is a blast. It's the best. It's the blah, 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 blah. And I was a painfully shy child. And getting up on stage was terrifying to me. But there was something about it that fed me. And then I walked off stage and I went right back into my shell. But something about performing. But that's what happened with me.
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to be an actor. I mean, really, by the ripe age of about 3.5, 4, I wanted to be taken seriously. Any fireplace that had a little mantle in front of it, that was my stage. And I was imitating every family member by about 8. And I was doing voice impersonations by 6th grade and getting in trouble for throwing my voice and doing creatures. And the teacher would turn around and, you know, I was kind of known for that. I would take requests by 7th grade. I was just really I was a full-time dancer. I was teaching and assisting classes by the time I was 15. I was suddenly teaching high school theater for 4 years in my early 20s. My whole trajectory was always acting. I knew that's what I was going to do. My biggest concern was being taken seriously. And music was a huge segue too. I did a lot of singing and did a lot of singing for theme songs on different shows. And I'm a lyricist, so I'll often reverse osmosis take the Japanese and adapt into poetry in English. And my theory was basically if I did anything but be a waitress and still stay in a creative vein and support my acting, I was furthering my pursuit of the arts. So it was just in my blood. There was no stopping me. And it was a passion that I hope that you all connect with in your own lives personally that drives your own careers. I mean, if you find something you love and you make it your career, then you'll love your work, you know? Doesn't mean there's not ups and downs, but.
Well, I started, as fate would have it, I was captain of my football team in college. And it was way back in the day, probably before your parents were born. But anyway, the Vietnam was going on, and the theater arts and fine arts people didn't mix with the football players and the guys in ROTC, and they had long hair, we had buzz cuts. And one of my fraternity brothers was directing this show called Emperor Jones. It takes place on a Caribbean island. James Earl Jones did it, Paul Robeson did it, and he loses his mind. He has all these monologues. He has this gun with gold bullets are going to kill the spirits, the ghosts who are chasing him. So he asked me if I would do the role because he thought it would bring the campus together. Because the campus was really divided. In those days, it was serious business. People were picketing, and I mean, actually, our football practices and our ROTC drills. And he thought that would bring the campus together. And so I decided, yeah, why not? You know. And I had always been a clown in school, too, but I never thought about, I had my corner with the dunce hat. It was whenever, that was my corner. So anyway, I decided to do it. And some of my teammates on the football team said, well, Bo's doing a play. I said, okay, all right. But they came, I did it, they came, and it actually had that effect. Because they were in the same room together. They weren't talking and yelling and screaming at each other. And it was about the play. And it's a great play, and that gave me the bug. And I went on. It took a while before I went to law school and blah blah blah. But I decided to start my acting career while I was in law school. I kind of like to overlap stuff, So and so I went down to audition for this show called The Great White Hope. It was a national tour, and I auditioned. And the director was Milton Katselis, who's a big Broadway director. He asked me if I really wanted to do it. I said, yeah. He says, okay, I'm going to have you sing something. Do you sing? And I said, yeah, I sing. And he said, okay, wait in the wings. We're going to have you sing something. And so I went in the wings, and then I had never experienced nerves like that in my entire life. I was so nervous. My stomach, I had to throw up, and I had issues on the other end, and I was just going to flee. I just decided, okay, you know what? I'm just going to leave. I'm just going to leave because I can't do it. I didn't even know a whole song. I did not know a whole song. So I was decided, but my ego kicked in. I said, I'm a Billingsley. I don't quit. So I'm going to do this. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to sing a little bit of, what am I going to sing? Tom Jones is not unusual, right? God. So it's not unusual to be loved by anyone. So yes, and that's what I do. I do. And so.
Please tell me you swivel the hips. Please tell me.
Well, listen. So I'm ready. I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to do it. And then I hear Bo, and I'm going, oh, God, I can't. And so I went out. He said, okay, what we want you to do is sing a chorus with some other people of Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. I said, I can do that. With a bunch of other people. Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. I got that. And I did it, and I got the part, and that was my That was my first paying stage gig, national tour out of Broadway. And yeah, it was cool. And I was thinking, too, if I had chickened out, it would have changed my life. And I would have gone back to Connecticut to say, show business is too scary. I can't do this. I can't do this.
And we would have been cheated out of Bo singing "It's Not Unusual."
It's not unusual. Okay.
Oh my God.
No, they did not.
But we could hear it.
And
right
no,
here.
thankfully, no one has ever heard me sing
You
that.
could do it right now on the table, dude. Throw your underwear out in the audience and everything. That'd be amazing.
No one is interested in my underwear.
I'll catch
Tom
it.
Jones is that.
I'll sell it on eBay, baby.
What about you, buddy?
I started acting truly by accident. I was playing in the only R&B band in Los Angeles in the 1980s, opening for hair bands and heavy metal acts. And I had a day job in a mailroom, and they were looking for voices for a Japanimation program. The head of the mailroom, this guy named Victor Garcia, was casting for a Japanimation thing that he was going to be doing. And he asked me, everybody else in the building was an actor because it's Los Angeles and Hollywood and everybody's an actor or want to be an actor. I didn't care. And I said, no, dude, I don't want to do that. And he goes, well, come in on a Saturday and I'll give you free pizza. And I went, okay, I'll do that.
Actors and free food, right?
I was literally a starving musician. And so I went in on a Saturday and I said, what do I have to do? And he goes, you just have to be a creature. Just make a creature noise. You do that in the mailroom all the time. I went, okay, that'll be fine. And I still get the pizza, right? And he goes, yeah, you can still get the pizza. So back then, we didn't know that it's much more efficient to bring in one person at a time. So they brought in 20 people, and some of the really great voice actors from our anime community were there. And I got to just sit and watch these guys do their thing while I'm just, shoving pizza in my mouth, happy as a clam. And I figured, they're never even going to get to me. And finally, they go, all right, Steve, you're up. And they put me up at a microphone, and they show me an image of this creature called a zoonoid from a show called The Guyver. And the scene that they showed me was this creature ripping the arm off of another creature and beating him with it or something. And they said, okay, what would that sound like? And I went, oh, I got that. Okay. Just be like, I don't know, maybe. And they went, okay, you're hired. And I went, what? Do I still get more pizza? And I realized that my music training actually made making the movements on the screen make sense to me because it's rhythmic and language is rhythmic and melodic. And so when they asked me to try out for some of the speaking roles on the show, it just made sense to me. I could hit the timing from it, and I could actually alter my voice enough because of the music training. And it seemed like something that I could do. I didn't know if I was doing it right, but I just copied what everybody else was doing, and I really liked it. It was just fun. I didn't care if I ever got paid for it. They could have paid me forever in pizza, and I would have been happy. And I just did it for years because I love to do it, and that hasn't stopped. And don't tell my agent, but I'd still do it for pizza. I know, shush. But that's how it started for me, and I fell in love with the medium, and mostly I fell in love with our community because most of the people in our community are like this. They're real people that I have fallen in love with and call my family. And to get to do that as your job, to get to work with people that you really love and respect, and when Wendy comes up with this crazy new character that just blows my head apart, or Bo or Paul, it's the most fun thing you can do for a job. Honestly, it's really great. Thank you for that.
Great question. Thanks.
You guys look so good. I know. Wow, it's like looking in a mirror, Faye.
Hey, we got a question for you. What is, like, individually, your favorite phrase or sentence that each of your characters said, the most memorable from Cowboy Bebop?
I always ask you because you remember better than me. I don't feel like Faye has that many signature lines. But, you know what they say, Space Cowboy, easy come, easy go.
That voice.
Okay. All right,
Yeah,
you just
baby.
tingled in here. Anime crush. Right here. Wow.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm going to say a word that begins with A, and it means a donkey, so don't get excited, parents. But it came from the movie And my favorite line that Spike ever got to say was, "I love the kind of woman that can kick my ass." You have to kick really high when you have a donkey to hit the...
That's actually my favorite line too, but I didn't say it, so where can you go? Well, actually, I have a couple. One is, you know, when right at the beginning of the show, when I say, "Hey, Spike, time to eat." Hey,
Mine. What do we have?
Bell peppers and beef.
We had that yesterday.
No, yesterday we had beef and bell peppers. But
I don't think we had any beef in there, though.
That's because we have no beef because Faye stole the Woolongs. So we were, so we got no beef because she stole our money.
Thanks. Faye made us all vegan.
Thanks a lot. We're all starving because of you, Faye.
Veggie burgers all around.
That's where it all started.
But actually, my favorite line is, you know, from Mushroom Summer when he's talking to his bonsai trees. You know, well, who am I anyway? That's mine.
Oh, I got one more. Can I do one more? Hey, Jet. You know there are 3 things I particularly hate.
What's that?
Kids, animals, and women with attitudes.
No.
So tell me, Jet, why do we have all 3 of them neatly gathered on our ship?
Obviously, you're in the wrong place, Spike.
We were literally talking about that.
Well, in my case, I can't remember what the cue was exactly, but Judy was saying something to me about a bounty and just how many Woolongs. It was an outrageous amount of Woolongs were being offered. And my response to her is still my favorite line. I said, "What? Are you kidding me?" Still my favorite of all time.
I just love when you say, "Shucks, howdy." That just makes me so happy.
Shucks, howdy. How y'all doing?
Right? Brings back all the feels, right?
Yeah, right.
I would try, but I have makeup on.
Thank you, Faye, for the great question. Yeah.
We're fans too, can you tell?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Surely.
See you, Space Cowboy.
Hey, cowgirl.
So right off the bat, I want to say thank you very much for even being here at Yamacon, and it means a whole heck of a lot to all of us, and I can definitely say that.
Thank you.
You guys,
Thank you very
you guys rock.
Thank you very much.
You kind of already said half of what I was going to ask you to say with that one, so I kind of feel like I'm wasting my time, but I'm going to ask you again anyway. I would like you to say the opening line for episode 1, Asteroid Blues, the bell peppers and beef. I would just want to get that on camera. That is, I've been wanting that for absolute years. I know you just said it, but I wasn't ready. You kind of got me. The line is approximately, hold on one sec, I already have it pulled up.
This is why we do voiceover. We don't have to remember lines.
So Jet says approximately, "Hey Jet, it's ready." He says, "Well, then I'm almost done myself." And he said, "What are we having?" And he said, "Special bell peppers and beef." And then they're talking about Asimov Solensen. That's their next target. But the bottom line, what I need you to say is, you know, what's for dinner? Special bell peppers and beef. It's like, "Hey Jet, you said this was bell peppers and beef, but there's no beef in here. You wouldn't exactly call it bell peppers and beef, would you?" "Well, yes, I would." "Well, it's not." "Well, it is when you're broke." That's all I want. I know that's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's all you want?
That's all you want?
That's all I want.
Okay, you know what? We'll do what we just did. How's that?
Wait, do you have it printed out here?
I have it.
Do you have it? Yeah, because if you have it here, we can read off of it. But then you won't be able to record it, right?
You guys are accommodating.
Okay, let's just do this really fast.
I can't even read it.
Oh, you
It's
can't
too
read
small.
it?
It's too small. I can't read it.
Oh, it's too. Jet's old. Jet's old. Okay.
What we doing again? What? Where are we?
Can you read that?
Where? Yeah. Okay. Where are we?
Asteroid. And it just switched to yoga pants. It started searching. You know what?
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we got to move on because
I apologize.
it's just too many words for us.
Yeah, you're right.
We're old and we don't.
Okay, yeah. Okay, Spike, time to eat what we have in bell peppers and beef. Okay,
That's all. That's all.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Hey, Spike, you ready?
Hold on one sec. You clicked on yoga pants. Were you trying to find yoga pants?
I think you're
No,
a
it just started
frustrator.
searching for yoga pants. I don't know what happened.
I they look good on you. They look
Thank
good on
you.
you. All right, hold on one sec. I'm so sorry, guys. I love you guys so much.
Yeah.
All right. I've got it.
Hey, Spike. Time to eat.
Great. What are we having?
My specialty, bell peppers and beef.
Yeah, that's what you said yesterday, but doesn't bell peppers and beef necessitate the need for beef?
Not really, not in my special recipe. We had that yesterday, right?
Yeah, I
so,
know.
but today we have beef and bell peppers without the beef.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, well, I'm the cook on this ship. You can leave if you don't like it.
And scene.
Thank you guys very much. Thank you guys so much. I'm so sorry, but I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for coming to Yamacon. It means a lot.
You're welcome.
All right.
And for the record,
it only took us a half an hour
For
on
the
that
record,
one. So
Spike
it's
would
okay.
never say necessitate. It's too many syllables for him.
That's
I just brained him up a little.
Hey guys, what's up?
You.
Before my question, Steve, I've been a big fan of Toonami since the Moltar days. Your speeches on there meant a lot. Being a teenager growing up and stuff, that positivity, very awesome. Loved every one of them. And my question, spoiler alert for the ones who didn't know what Cowboy Bebop was, but towards the end, what do you guys think about if Spike would have stayed behind with Faye? You know,
Tell me more.
you know, there could have been something. You know, I know Spike was going where he needed to go, but what if, you know, something happened, and then afterwards, how do you think the crew got on without Spike?
We would have had some little spikes, maybe. I don't know. It would have been painful.
Better than dogs.
Yeah, Spike might have let himself go and fall for her at some point. I think.
Why is
Yeah.
there so much romantic imagery between them? I mean, all day we were signing these images of them back to back, side to side. It's
You guys realize that Faye is 73 years old, right?
take it easy.
Don't care.
Just saying.
Really, really don't care.
Age is just a number.
She'd make scientific history.
She was frozen a few decades, but you know. But really, it's interesting how they always flirt with the idea, but play them adversarial, and then still get into his love interest and a little into hers too. So it's almost as if there was an understanding that the love is already there. They know that. Moving on. It's a very nuanced relationship.
There was a weird respect between them, I think, and I think if they had taken it another step further, it would have ruined their relationship. Much like some of the mistakes I've made in my past life.
Well, maybe that's it. Maybe it's because they have more of a working relationship, and it could interfere ultimately with really the thing that matters most to Faye, money.
Yeah. Yeah, and see, Wendy and I are still friends because we didn't go there, so
Yeah,
it worked
we
out.
kept it professional. We just flirt via
All the time.
speakers.
All the time.
Hello, just a quick question. I wanted to know if there was any kind of fun stuff that happened with the engineers and directors that, you know, them pulling pranks or jokes on you guys when you weren't expecting it.
Too much of
Guys are pretty serious about getting the work done.
Mary was mean. She beat us up.
Oh, Mary mean. Do you see the scar right here?
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
no,
Yeah,
God, mean.
I had to pull
Honestly-
Mary off of Paul because it was ugly. Yeah.
Oh, boy, I tell you. No, the thing is, and it's kind of like this with a lot of animes we do, we are on a real time crunch. So sadly, we don't get to clown around very much. We'll throw in the joke take here and there, but typically we got to get it done because, well, when I'm walking out, Bo's walking into work. And
Right,
it's-
yeah.
So, I mean, it would have been nice if we had time to do that stuff. There wasn't much that I could remember anyway.
We're booked on time blocks, you know, so that we have to finish our work within our time period, and so we do that.
One of the things that I can tell you is that whenever Spike had a cigarette in his mouth, I wasn't a smoker, and Mary was at the time. And she would give me a cigarette, and I'd pop it in my mouth. And at the end of the session, I always tried to save the cigarette because I felt like they were probably precious to her, and I didn't want to take too many of hers. So back then, before we had these things, I had one of these day planners, and I had a little pouch, the little plastic pouch in there, and I would carefully wrap the cigarette, put it in the pouch, and try to save it for the next session, just to be respectful. And every single time, it was just flakes. By the time I got there, I'd just pour it out onto the floor. And I'd have to sheepishly go up and I'd say, I need another cigarette. I'm sorry. And she was really nice about it after she yelled at me. But yeah.
I was smoking pens.
Smoking pens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was smoking pens.
She wanted me to have a cigarette in my mouth.
Yeah.
Sometimes he would talk without hands, too, with the cigarette flopping around, and she wanted it to sound like that. I did it with pens, but it kept making that clicking sound. I wasn't as professional as you, apparently.
I switched to little eyeliner pencils. So yeah, we just needed to trick you out with some women's makeup.
I didn't have one of those in my purse. I'm sorry.
Well, it goes from cigarettes to eyeliner to the nicotine patch, so that's how you the progress. So I'm proud of you, Wendy. Very proud of you.
You know, there was an interesting thing that was going on, I can say, from the women's perspective behind the scenes, and that is Mary and I kind of took up the locker room kind of dialogue about the men. So yeah, we were a little naughty behind the scenes.
Oh.
Well, we were really attracted to our cast and our characters, and I turned to Mary at one point about maybe 6 episodes in, and I said, "This is natural to you, but it was shocking to me." I said, "Is it wrong to have a crush on your lead in an animated series?" And she said, "No." So we would listen back to takes and just kind of swoon. And every once in a while, we'd talk about what we'd like to do to that voice. So it was a little bit of role reversal. There was some like matriarchal dominance going on, and it was really kind of liberating to be with another really strong woman kind of, perving out on the guys. So it was like we tried that on.
Well, that was very sexist.
We had to wait 20 years to hear that.
20 years?
My life would have been completely different had I had that information back then. Thanks a lot.
Forget about it. My wife, too. You know what I mean?
Well, Punch has that effect on women all the time. They're always, like fantasizing about me. So, Thank you. That was a good question.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Shucks, howdy gets me Randy.
All right. So in the art book, there's a couple pictures of just like Jet and Spike having a good laugh, and it makes me wonder, how do you guys think they met?
Not sure if we know the actual meeting, but we did have a history together. No, because you came out of the ISS.
Right, because I was a cop.
Yeah.
And you were involved with
syndicate.
The syndicate. Yeah, so
you probably
I think
arrested me at some point. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. But but there's nothing specific about that that I recall.
Not that I remember. Yeah, I mean, there are people who know the show a lot better than I do.
I know.
Yeah, it seems to me it was addressed at some point, but it's so vague now. There was something in some scene where you talked, but I cannot remember what it was.
Yeah, last night, Bo and I were signing some images of that particular shot of us laughing together. And I looked at it and I said to him, "This is our relationship. Every time we see each other, we howl together. We just have such a great time."
Yeah.
He's my brother. We're all family.
Yeah, we're all family. But that particular shot, we're laughing because Faye had stepped into some of Ein's poo.
She never cleaned anything up. No.
She made Ed do it. Okay.
Yeah. And with that, we got to clean this up and get out of here because I think we're over time.
We're actually over time.
Yeah,
guys, thank you.
They need the
thank
room,
you.
right?
Yeah, thank you guys
Thanks,
so
everybody.
much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys for being here, and we will be here till tomorrow. So please come by our signing tables and say hello.
Yeah, we're going back to our tables now, right?
Yeah, we love you guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Love you guys
See you,
so
Space
much.
Cowboy.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.